Welcome, everybody, to the Seven Square Podcast, your CEO Spotlight. Today, I have with me a great friend of mine, Miss Sheri Riley. Sheri, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. I'm excited about our conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And for any of you college football fans out there, Sheri is a Georgia Bulldogs fan. She met my Crimson Tide and they took the loss. So we may see each other again in the final. We will see. But that's
Edit.
just some of that family banter.
Okay, we're going to edit that out, guys. We're going to edit that out.
No way. So, Sheri, tell the audience a little bit about yourself in case they're not familiar with you or they don't know you.
Yeah, so I am the founder and president of Exponential Living. Our company empowers professional athletes, entertainers, corporate executives, and entrepreneurs to grow personally so that they can dominate professionally. And we use two tracks: the 360-degree champion, that is tailored for professional athletes and entertainers, and our Power Broker coaching and training, which is tailored for corporate executives and entrepreneurs. And the reason I'm so committed to high performers is because I know what it is to crash and burn, to absolutely reach the highest levels of success, which I did as a corporate executive at LaFace Records, and then as an entrepreneur for 17 years, owning a strategic consulting firm. I knew how to get the success through my drive, but I realized I didn't have the confidence to sustain that success or the transition when I knew that I needed more bandwidth for other things. So that's what I focus on. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because this is so important.
Oh, absolutely. And remember, guys, we're having a short conversation so you can hear a challenge, take the information given, and go and implement it. We're not getting stuck on information and motivation. We're actually getting stuck or we're moving forward with application. So, Sheri, that may just be the topic because you said something very interesting. But what was that one challenge for you while you were growing and scaling your business that had you really stuck and had you almost burning out? What was that challenge and how did you overcome it?
And you just said the two words. I didn't know the difference between growing a business and scaling a business. And so growing a business meant I kept going after more and more and getting more and more, but it required more and more of me versus scaling a business, which means you get more business. It requires less of you because you have the right people and the right procedures and policies and systems in place. And so, how I fixed that is the first thing I did is I recognized I had taken me as far as I could take me. Even being an entrepreneur for 17 years, I needed to get very intentional help and not just some help, but intentional help. And that's why I love what you're doing. And so I reached out to a couple of key people. They began to coach me on how to scale my business. And then the second resolve that I came up with is I needed help on how to get the right people. And so I actually hired for the first time a professional, a human resource professional who actually expanded the reach on how I actually secured my people. And so now I have a real team, not just the people in my resource or my umbrella of reach. And we're able to really create systems. So scaling the business versus growing the business was the challenge and the opportunity at the same time.
Oh, I love it. When you talk about those business systems and creating those processes and starting to build that team, how important was it to actually have the team? Because a lot of people want to do this on their own. It's their baby, they're tied to it, they feel like nobody can do it better than them. It's hard to let go. And I think some of that, I did a recording session not long ago where I talked about ego. You got to let your ego go away in order to delegate responsibly. So, in your perspective, or from your perspective, how important is dropping the ego of this is my baby, I'm the best in the world at it, to let me delegate some of those things?
You know what? I that is a very valid reality, that ego. And because you've already said everything about that truth, I'm going to add to that. And what I had to do in addition to the ego is I had to realize that the habit of just doing it, I had to address and change. So it was just like I had always just done it. I'd been an entrepreneur. I just had this mindset of go get it done. And what I had to realize is that moving to this next level of scaling my business, it was my intellectual property. It was my thoughts and vision that was critical for the business, not my ability to execute the tactical.
Mm.
And so when I realized that, I began to create partnerships that where I brought in an expertise that I didn't have. And then I was able to bring in team members and staff members that I was now able to not only trust their expertise, but realize I needed to relinquish. And I'll give you one quick example. I'm so used to having staff meetings, and I basically say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Or my end of the year meetings and say, hey, this is my vision. Here's how we're going to implement it. Now, knowing the power of the team that I brought in, here's why I had to think differently. And I had to actually check myself and catch myself as I was beginning to prepare for the year end meeting. I realized, no, Sheri, you don't need to tell them what the vision is. What you need to do is say, here's our goals. Here's the big picture for 2022. What have you accomplished in 2021? And what do you plan on accomplishing for 2022 that's going to allow us to exceed those goals? That's a very different mindset for me. And so, me being able to understand and appreciate and then implement other people's value versus just, I got to get it done. I got to get it done. Again, it goes back to growing the business. I had to get it done. Scaling the business, I have to make sure I empower the people to get it done.
Oh, I love that. And when you speak of that, it goes to vision because some people get this confused. They don't understand the difference of working on the business versus working on in the business. So the vision is when you're working on the business, you're forecasting. That's what really propels a business forward. It's your vision that you own that once you walk in it, you get the buy-in from your team. And then you have to move away from working in the business, which is the execution. So if you're looking at the 80-20 rule, you would say, well, that 20% that really drives the business forward, that's the vision. That's where I'm working. And then that 80% is the execution, the day to day, and everything that's needed. But that's where you delegate it. So I definitely appreciate that, Sheri. You drop some awesome gems there. What is one last thing that you can leave for the viewers to that are in they're stuck in that growth phase and they don't know how to get to that thing? What is that next step for them? Is it going out, finding a mentor, a coach, or advisor, or is there something else they should do once they realize, hey, it's time for me to scale? I have to stop growing.
Yeah, I would say in addition to finding that mentor, that coach, whether you have to pay for it or whether you ask and someone says yes to pouring into you, which I've had both. I have people that are pouring into me, and I have professionals that are above me that I'm paying to help me grow. But I think in addition to that, it's recognizing that your thinking is a habit. And so you have to force yourself to think differently, just like I did going into that year end meeting. I had to recognize you're thinking the same way, Sheri. You have to really think differently. I'm constantly having to tell myself, you've never done this before. So the way you've been thinking is going to get the same results. How do you need to think differently so that you can get different results? And I think being able to be intentional about just breaking the habit. I love what you said about ego. And I would say the counter to that is recognizing the habit of how you've always done it and being able to check your thinking so that you can think differently, do differently, and accomplish more.
Oh, beautiful. So, guys, we're about to wrap this up and get out of here. Remember, I'm not here, Sheri's not here, and any other guests are not here for you to just take information and hold it. We want you to take these steps and actually apply it. So, make sure that when you look at your business and you look at where you identify, are you in the growth phase or are you ready to scale? Then identify what's the next step for you. Is it bringing in a mentor? Then realize that at some point you have to begin to work on the business, owning your vision instead of focusing in the business, the implementation. And that's where you delegate, you bring in that team around you so you could take off and scale. Sheri, thank you so much for joining me. How can the people find you? How can they follow you or reach you?
Yes, so everything is Sheri Riley, SHERIRILEY, website, Instagram, as well as Twitter. And then LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook are SheriRiley.com. So SheriRiley, YouTube, Instagram, and my website.
Excellent. So, everybody, thank you for joining us again for your Seven Square Podcast CEO Spotlight. We'll see you next time. Have a great one.